Yeah, and
some kids in here, and it all goes to pop. Kids artists, straight kids when they first was. And yes, I do have some obsessive compulsive tendencies. And the goal is airplane. Not airplane.
Okay, we've got lights on. We are ready to go. Thank you all for joining us. Spanish Fork City Council meeting, September 17th, 2024, here in the council chambers here at Spanish Forks Main Street and all around the world on YouTube and Channel 17. We appreciate you joining us. We're going to start off the meeting with a prayer and a pledge like we always do. We'd like to first excuse Councilwoman Beck tonight. She is on personal time with her family. We wish her well, and as well as Councilman Cardin is away on business. So we're missing them tonight, but you've got the rest of us here tonight. Thank you for joining us. We'll start off with the spiritual thought and prayer by Councilman Euler, and then have Councilman Marshall lead us in the pledge.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a quick thought. I'm going to read this. Imagine for a moment living under a government that possessed unlimited and undefined powers, such as Communist China or Nazi Germany. What rights do you have now that you think you would lose? To whom or to what would you turn if you thought the government were treating you unfairly? How many of your own choices in life, what college to attend, what career options to pursue, whether to marry or have children, what religion to belong to, what of those decisions do you feel would be free to make of your own accord? Fortunately, we live in a country where we have many freedoms, and it's because the government was set up the way it was. And the reason I bring this up is today is a holiday that maybe not very many people know about. Today is Constitution Day, and Constitution Week begins today. So I would invite the public to take time this week to read and study a little bit of the Constitution and understand that our government is set up the way it is because of some very intelligent individuals back in the day who took the time to write and create our Constitution. And many countries throughout the world have tried to replicate what we have here in the United States, and we're fortunate that we live where we do. So having said that, I'll go ahead and say a prayer. Father in heaven, we give thanks this night for the opportunity to be here in this city council meeting. We're so grateful, Father, that we live in Spanish Fork, grateful that we live in the country that we do, that we have the freedoms that we do, and for our founding fathers in the Constitution. We're grateful, Father, for those that serve. Bless us all that we can look for opportunities to serve those around us, those that are in need. Guide and direct our thoughts as we make decisions for our community tonight, and we pray for these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councilman Euler.
All right, please stand and repeat after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman Euler. Thank you, Councilman Took. We appreciate that. Item C on our agenda is recognition. Pat Nichols for a crossing guard do we have?
Pat was ill this evening, so
dang it.
Yeah, we'll
push that to the next one again.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, just know that that's coming up. Pat Nichols has served her community for well over 30 years, and we're excited to honor her as soon as she starts feeling better. Important aspect is certainly as we got back into school season. Appreciate all the crossing guards throughout the city, keeping all the kids safe as they go into and from school. Appreciate that so much. Okay, it takes us to public comments in our agenda. This is the section of the agenda where anybody can come up and address the mayor and council about any subject that you'd like to. Just try to keep it to 3 minutes so we can keep the meeting moving along. But is there anybody from the public that would like to come up and address the mayor and council tonight? Going once, twice, I'm looking both sides. Okay, seeing none. Okay, we'll move along from public comment to council comments. We'll start down here with Councilman Took for councilman comments to report on what has happened since a couple of weeks since we last met, and work our way over here to Councilman Marshall. Councilman Took.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mayor. Great to be with you all this evening. Couple things I'd like to share. First off, all right, we'll start right there with the Chamber of Commerce. A lot of exciting things going on the last couple of weeks. This was just a couple nights ago. I was able to participate in this special event. This was ribbon cutting and grand opening for a new restaurant, Indian restaurant called Swad Cabin. And let me tell you what, the food is absolutely incredible, and amazing family that's, you can see some of them there, that's, brought this to our town, and I'm just really excited about it. And so I'd encourage everyone to get out and support Swad Cabin. They're located just north of the small Walmart, and they've got a great setup they have. I counted, I think there were nearly 10 tables inside, so for sit-down dinner, lunch, and outside too, various tables, just wonderful layout. Really nice job in developing this new business for us here in town. So that's Swad Cabin. Thanks for that picture, Jack. I appreciate that. On the topic of, and here's another thing too that I love. This is we were all able to go. Well, I think most of us at least to tour where the rec center's at. A couple pictures. This was really special for me. I just, for years now, I've been trying to do what I can to help with this massive project. And so to see this come together and, what it's becoming is just really special. Here we are standing where the Olympic pool will be. And we just, really had a good evening learning about where the project's at. And in a year from now, it's a game changer for all of us. And so, so much I could say about the rec center, but we are in good hands, and Westland's doing an amazing job. And so, just kind of get a little bit of a update on where things are at there, and we'll give more as we get closer to the completion of that project. Thanks again, Jack, for those great pictures. And then just a couple more notes from the Chamber of Commerce. Our Kathleen Lovett, our president, is out sick this evening, but I wanted to share a couple things on her behalf. She asked that I remind everyone that there's a ribbon cutting tomorrow for a new company called Scent Hound, and they're located at 31 East, 1000 North here in Spanish Fork. So again, 31 East, 1000 North. We'll have a Costco cake and the ribbon and everything like you just saw for SWAT Cabin. So if you can join us tomorrow at noon, that would be wonderful. Also, on Thursday, there's a new Chamber of Commerce. There's a new networking event at the Hampton Inn. Custom Fit is sponsoring the lunch. So if you're interested, reach out, let me know. But that's another event, exciting, going on this week at noon at the Hampton. And those networking events are a lot of fun. And then the last reminder I have for the Chamber of Commerce is, at least from Kathleen, is we have our amazing business summit that's coming up on October 10th, and I think all of us will be there. I know our mayor will be presenting. And just have a really amazing lineup for this event. And so if you're interested, I would invite you to reach out, and I can tell you all about it, but it's going to be one you don't want to miss. That, again, that's the Chamber of Commerce, our business summit, annual summit on October 10th. So, and then just a couple more quick things here. We had a board meeting for Chamber of Commerce a couple days ago. They had some updates. Landmark High School is expanding because of growth and different needs, and I thought that was worth noting. And so that's you might see some things going on there. That's what's happening. Let's see. And then, another reminder, Wings and Wheels is coming up on the 28th, sponsored by our Parks and Rec department, 28th from 8 to 6. Amazing lineup. So make sure you put that on your calendars. And that's all I've got for now.
Thank you, Councilman Took. Very, very good work. Appreciate that. Councilman Euler.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll start with a couple of photos that I sent over to Jack. Whatever you bring up, Jack, and then we'll talk about those. First one, if you've driven up Highway 6 towards the mouth of Spanish Fork Canyon, you've probably noticed a project under construction for the last year plus or so. We had the opportunity the other day to go and tour what is a giant underground, or will be underground, water container. So this is to hold our culinary water, which is our drinking water. This replaces a 1 million gallon and a 2 million gallon water container with what is now a 5 million gallon water container. Pretty impressive, the construction that took place there. You can kind of see all those pillars. We thought there was another group that was going to go through it today. We thought it would be fun. That is, that group was touring to have them start the water and start filling it up while they were down there. Mayor, I told him to make sure and invite you for that, but not sure if that happened or not. They're going to start filling that in the next day or so. A lot of times on council we get questions about the water in Spanish Fork. How much water do we have? How many people can we support? You know, we've got to be getting tight, getting close, all this growth that we've had. I can assure you, based on things that I've seen and talking to Paul in our water department and others, Spanish Fork is in very good hands, and we have sufficient for our needs and then some when it comes to water. We've got individuals throughout the years that have done some excellent planning and put our city in a great position when it comes to water. So we're grateful for them and our employees that have done excellent work through the years. All right, next set of photos. Last night, the Spanish Fork Historic Preservation Commission held another lecture series. We try and do these monthly. Richard Davis came and spoke to us about the old Pioneer Heritage Cemetery up on the east end of town. Some of you may be familiar with it, others may be not as familiar. There are 103 individuals that are buried in that cemetery, and they are some of the very earliest settlers of Spanish Fork City. I believe I know before it was even Spanish Fork City. These individuals lived in cutouts in the side of the hill just above the river bottoms. That's how they spent their winters. During the summers, they would live in their wagons or in tents, but when it got cold and the snow started to fall, they would go and live in dugouts. Back then, they called Spanish Fork City Gopher Town because they lived in the mountains. This is all information and stories that Richard shared with us last night, and we're grateful for him and grateful for these lecture series. They're really interesting, and I'm learning quite a bit about the history of the town that I grew up in that I had no idea. Next month, we're going to have another lecture series, and we want to invite everybody now to get it on your calendars. Monday, October 21st at 7 p.m., here in the library in the Heritage Room just across the hall. We've invited the Jones-Hughes family that are the owners of the Jones-Hughes Pioneer Heritage Park. You can pretty much see it right out the window, right next to Barry's on Main Street. So Preston, Elaine, and Jenna Hughes are going to come, and they're going to talk of the history of the Jones-Hughes Pioneer Heritage Park. So we want to invite everyone to that. A couple other items. I went to our board meeting with the animal shelter this month. Happy to report that the number of dogs that are being contained in the shelter is down from what it has been in the past. They still have 120 so dogs and even more cats that are looking for homes. So if you are wanting to adopt an animal, adopt a pet, if there are any kids that are actually watching, I would convince you to go and talk to your parents. There are a few kids here. Go talk to your parents and tell them how much you want a dog or how much you want a cat, and have them take you down to the animal shelter and see what's down there. They've got some amazing pets down there. I had one other item, and it has slipped my mind because I didn't write it down. Oh, it came back to me. So speaking of slipping my mind, the Senior Center has opened again for the beginning of the season. We want to invite everyone to come down and participate in the lunches that they hold down at the Senior Center every Monday and Thursday, and the first Friday of every month is their member meal. One of my favorite places to be, and absolutely my favorite people to interact with, are the seniors in our community. We brag about how great our Senior Center is because it has absolutely the best food that you will get at any senior center around. So invite everybody to come noon on Mondays and Thursdays to participate in our senior meals. That's all I've got, Mayor.
Perfect. Thank you, Councilman Euler. Councilman Marshall.
I can't even remember the sequence. I'm pretty sure we went to the league after the last meeting, right?
Yeah.
All right, so that's basically my only update is we had a chance to meet and hang out with fellow elected officials from across the state for a day and a half up in Salt Lake. It's always nice to go to the league meeting and talk about find those that are dealing with exactly the same issues that we're dealing with in Spanish Fork. Oftentimes it feels like we're alone, but we're not, right? You run into someone from Goshen, they're running into the same things that we are. And so it's nice to meet and talk with those folks, get trained on a variety of things. It seems like every year we go, there's a new way of interpreting the law or a new law that we have to deal with. So it was great. Appreciate the opportunity, Seth and the rest of the staff that was there to hang out a bit and chat. One thing that I want to talk about at some point, maybe it's a staff report, but while we were there, we started talking about the general plan and like to get a little bit of feedback or give some feedback to Dave about the general plan and where we're headed there. Maybe we can save that for the next. I don't know if there's a general plan update today, but
I don't think we planned. I
Okay.
don't think we planned one, had we?
that'd be wonderful. Just so everyone knows, October 15th, our second meeting in October, I won't be here. So put some really good stuff on the agenda, and I will listen to it from afar, all the way down in Nevada. But that's all I had, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Marshall. You have good timing that we'll probably have a packed agenda on 10:15. We'll be here till midnight.
That's usually how it works. I appreciate that.
Okay. Thank you all. Thank you for attending your meetings. Thanks for reporting on what's going on. I'll just, before I pass it over for staff reports, I appreciate Constitution Day being mentioned. It's talked about this whole month. It's talked about today. I think my overarching message about the Constitution and the Constitution Day is that it's been amended 27 times. So that document in our nation's history, people like to get so polarized in politics today. Thankfully, again, I'm always the homer for local politics, that we don't care if it's a D or an R next to the pothole. We just got to fix it. And remember that a little bit more in our lives. The Constitution, no one holds a corner of the Constitution and says, it's my document and this is why I'm right. We're all Americans, and we live by that document, inspired document for our nation's history. But it's been amended 27 times because of the legislation of being passed to amend it. And so it'll probably be amended in the future too, as we come along as Americans and come together and make rules and laws that are for the better of our whole country and in our communities. So happy to celebrate Constitution Month, Constitution Day. It's an important document in our country. It's an important document in the state. It's an important document to us here in Spanish Fork. So with that, I'll pass it along to Manager Perrins for staff reports. I know some of it's already been touched on with the tour of the recreation center and stuff, and excited to get some updates there of what's been going on in the city the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, thanks. Dave, you want to touch on the general plan, and Councilman Marshall, if you've got some specific questions, please put those out there for him. But Dave's got a couple of items, and I think Dale's got 2 items as well. That's it for today.
I'll go first so I can...
Sure. Yeah.
No, I thought you were going to say she could add a little color to me.
Yep.
I need the color, trust me. So I've got a couple of items. The first announcement that I guess I want to make, 5 years ago with the Fiesta Days Rodeo, we added a 5th night, which was an Extreme Bowls night. This was strategic doing this because Nampa, Idaho had what they call a short go, which conflicted with our Saturday night performances. And so quite often what that means is we'd have a lot of cowboys go up there, so it affected our bareback and our saddle bronc riding. And oftentimes on a Saturday night we might have 1 rider or 2 riders. So we strategically placed Extreme Bowls on a Saturday night so we didn't have that conflict anymore. That worked really well. Actually, over the last 5 years has forced Nampa to actually move to a different weekend, a different date altogether. They're no longer conflicting with us. So that's basically just to set the stage to tell you the committee in our last meeting unanimously voted to remove the Extreme Bowls night and bring in a 5th night of a full rodeo. And let me give you a couple of bullet points, I guess, to help you understand why that is. We have found out over the years that the fans really do prefer the full rodeo. The full rodeo was a neat novelty at first.
The Extreme Bowls.
I can't hear what he's saying over there. But
The Extreme Bowls was a novelty.
Oh, sorry. The Extreme Bowls, yes. But one of the things I think that you need to that we'd like you to understand is the Extreme Bowls was a standalone event. It was not part of our rodeo in terms of the PRCA and how they view that. So it was completely separate in terms of payout. Our payout obviously is determines how much money we get from media rights as well. And it's based on our total event payout, and Extreme Bowls did not count towards that payout because it was a standalone event. So if we combine now and hold 5 nights instead of the Extreme Bowls in 2025, our payout will increase $120,000. What that means to us is it moves us into the top 10 highest paying rodeos in the PRCA, which is 600 and some odd rodeos. What that means to us is
I think we need to let that soak in. Like that's a
top
big,
10.
That's a
big deal for Little Spanish Fork.
Name
right?
another top 10 rodeo, Dale, or
Cheyenne.
Or two. Cheyenne, pretty big rodeo.
San Antonio, Dallas.
Yeah,
Pendleton.
So the big ones, right? So Little Spanish Fork is in there with all of those guys.
We're like the SEC of rodeos.
Yeah. Okay, for you football fans, did you get that one? He's going, I don't want to talk to you.
I wouldn't either. He's a stranger.
Yes, I am. Anyway, so our media for the last 3 years, we've been paid $64,000 in media money based on our payout. What this moves us to is in 2025, it'll be $135,000 for one of the top 10 rodeos. The other factor is the PRCA is trying to go away from standalone events. And as I told you before, Extreme Bowls was a standalone event. So they implemented a rule in 2022 that you enter standalone events last. So what that means is all of our competitive rodeos here that are on July 24th, Salinas, Cheyenne, Salt Lake, Ogden, and us, they can enter all those rodeos, and then you can enter the standalone bull riding, which is what our event was on a Saturday night. If you've already drawn up anywhere else in the PRCA on that Saturday night, you can't enter the bull riding. So what that means is we planned for 45 bull riders on our Saturday night, and last year we had 31. So I don't know if any of this makes any sense. I'm just trying to give you some bullet points of reasons why the committee decided to do what we're doing. We pay for 45 bull riders even though we have 31. So it's not a good business decision anyway. So we're excited about it. We continue to have a record number of sellouts every year. Even though we add another night, we're risking oftentimes our sellout status, which has gone on for many, many years. But we've been selling out 5 nights now, and we'll sell out 5 nights of a regular rodeo as well. So before I go on, any comments, questions? That's just a quick, brief overview on a pretty big decision that the rodeo committee made just this last week. Big deal.
Big deal. Big deal with big rodeos, and we've always been the biggest in the state, but now we're one of the largest across the country for that week. Tickets still going on sale in April to give everyone a chance to see. These kids will understand what I'm saying. This is the Taylor Swift of rodeos, okay? It sells out. That's how popular it is. It's hard to get tickets.
They understood that better,
They
Seth,
got
than
that.
SEC.
Yeah, I saw some nodding heads from the 40-year-old man back there, Taylor Swift. Yeah, on sale in April. Is that right?
Yes.
Dale, I've got a question for you with rodeos. Some rodeos are a couple of days, just a weekend. Some are 5 days like ours. Some are a full week. We sell out every year. We're at 5 nights. If we were to make the decision, or if we had considered going to 6 nights, not saying that we're doing this, is that a decision the rodeo makes, or does the PRCA make that decision, or is it joint?
That would be a decision that the rodeo committee would decide to do and approach the PRCA.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to get our application every year approved through them to be sanctioned. So that would be the path forward if we decide. But please don't decide to do that.
Yeah. On that note as well, with
I'm
the
tired
sellouts,
just thinking about it.
I each year, and I'm sure we all do, even in the city, we all get people that say, "Hey, I can't get a ticket. Tickets are sold out. They sold out quick." We've changed the date that tickets go on sale. We'll see how that affects things. with the changes that we made last year, is there any way to know how pirating or scalping has been with ticket sales this last rodeo compared to prior rodeos?
Yeah, I don't have those numbers right here with me, but it was substantially better. There's a few roadblocks you can put in there. You can't ever stop it, but there's a few hurdles you can make them jump through in order to slow it down. And those pieces that we put in place definitely were effective.
Good.
We want to make sure that our citizens understand SF City Ticks, where you need to go get your tickets. And we may or may not be the first one on the list, but that's where you need to go to get your tickets. There's also, and I'll put a plug in, we've got a new volunteer program where you can have some access to some tickets too if you're willing to come down and help and be a part of the rodeo.
Awesome.
So there's avenues that are there, and we're always mindful and concerned about making sure our citizens get a chance to get tickets. But there's only so much we can do. You got to be on the ball and get on there and get them. And usually there's enough available unless you're slow.
You want to remind everybody when they'll go on sale next year?
Seth?
April 2, 9 a.m.
It's not an April Fool's joke. It's April 2, not April 1. April 2.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Dale.
Yeah.
And hopefully with that change, you don't have to plan your life a year in advance. And that's something I've heard a lot from people about. They're really grateful that they don't have to think
A year from now.
a year, on July 25th, am I going to be in town? Do I want this night or that night? And so when April 2nd rolls around, people will be a little bit closer to, being able to plan their lives. I think that'll be significantly better for the residents.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it'll be great.
Yeah, we're pretty excited about this. It's a pretty big deal to be in the top 10 Little Spanish Fork, so
Yeah,
it's a
that
big
is.
rodeo.
Important point that Dale, we somewhat take for granted. Other rodeos don't do it like this, but the volunteerism that exists in our rodeo through the Diamond Fork Riding Club and the other volunteers that step up to make 5 days as a rodeo happen. That's why he sighs when you say, what about 6? Well, that means somebody has to take 6 days
Volunteering.
off their full-time job. And kids get summer off school, but adults don't get summer off work. They're still having to go to work and figure that out. So between the Diamond Fork Riding Club and the volunteers that put this rodeo on, it's just tremendous. Most places contract out and say, this is how much you're paid to put on this rodeo, and then here's what you recoup. Well, to keep the cost low and an affordable, family-friendly environment, geez, you just get volunteers stepping up to take care of that for 6 days or 5 days, and prepping it is another 5 days, and everything else. But just tremendous that you get that much support, and speaks well to the Dale's department, the Diamond Fork Riding Club, and the whole city that you get that many volunteers willing to come out for. Maybe they get a couple of tickets, but they put in 50
Yeah, for
hours
sure.
of good.
Nobody
hard.
does volunteerism like Spanish Fork.
Yep.
That's for sure.
Good point.
The second item, Councilman Took already alluded to. We've got thanks to Travis. Wave at us, Travis, back there in the booth. That's our guy. Thanks to Travis, he shot a little video clip that we want to share here with you, just as an update on the rec center. Like he said, we're about a year out now from opening, so this thing needs to keep moving, and we are on schedule. Things are going well. The mayor and the council got to go. I don't remember what's on this video clip, but maybe we just roll it, Jack, and if I need to, I can. Except it has some music or something with it, doesn't it?
You can just voice over, Dale.
Yeah, we don't even.
Okay, so this is Mayor Mendenhall putting on his vest. We don't have any audio, do we?
That's right, just play it.
It's okay.
And we're talking.
It's going to go a little fast to narrate, huh?
We're into the pool area.
No, that's inside. That's the indoor pools there. That's our competition pool area with all the bleachers in there, you can see. These are changing rooms, locker rooms. We have 12 individual changing rooms there, with some of them are wet that have showers in them and stuff, so you can have privacy.
Those are the bleachers.
That'll seat 450 people. It's the largest one in the valley. Then we took them down to the bomb shelter. This is the bomb shelter. I'm just kidding. It's not really, but it's built like one. This is where all the surge tanks and things are that happen. You got 130,000 gallons of water that go through down there to be treated and with such. Right now they're walking in the recreational type area inside, and they're going down to look at our deep water tank, which they're pouring concrete on as we were there. So we're excited. They've got all the footings poured. If you want to get up at 4 o'clock tomorrow morning, you can go watch them pour some more concrete if that's your thing. I'd rather sleep personally, but they're pouring the last of our floors tomorrow morning. They were going to do it today, but it rained, so they're going to pour that tomorrow morning. But we're excited. The community center, the seniors will be moving down there as well, and we've got a beautiful facility planned for them, as well as a 13,000 square foot fitness area, which it didn't show, that's upstairs because it's not done yet, but with 2 tracks, and it's going to be an awesome facility, and we are so excited for our residents to be able to have this wonderful facility in our community. It's going to be a crown jewel here. We're excited for it. So we are on schedule to open September 15th. So they got less than a year to get it done now. So we got to keep them rolling. September 15th is the target date. So. Any questions? You guys were there. I hope I answered them all anyway. So
Yeah, it's exciting.
Questions, kids? You can ask Dale questions right there if you'd like.
Shoot.
You want to know how many?
Come on, ask me something.
Anybody want to know how many pools are in the rec center?
Do you want to know how many cool slides are in it? Yeah, we got 3 really cool slides outside from a tall tower. You're going to love it.
How deep's the dive tank?
The dive tank is 13 feet deep. So you get to walk up to this cool little cabin and jump off a platform. Does that sound fun to you? No? Oh, okay, I'm kind of with you. I don't want to get up too high. Yes. Oh, no, it'll be open. This dive tank, I'm sure we're going to get some scuba diver certifications wanting to take place in here as well, because it's a really nice area. Obviously, there's regulations in terms of safety on how many people we can have in there and people diving. It's not an open swim tank where you just go play in there, but we certainly will have swimming lessons in there as well as diving and some scuba diving type stuff too. So. The interesting part about down there that I showed the council is most pools, their concrete's poured about 4 inches deep, and down there, because of the water table, they had to put rebar in there and about 2 feet of concrete in the bottom so the pool wouldn't float. So it was kind of fun to watch them shoot concrete in there. That was a cool part. Just the other stuff's not too cool, but it was fun to watch them shoot that stuff in there. Did that answer your question?
Or is that
We do not have regular diving boards. No, this will be the dive tank. That's why we called it that. So yeah, you'll dive or jump or do a belly flop off of the plank.
Sadly, diving boards are not common anymore. There are probably a number of good reasons, many of which include lawsuits. So most
high
pools don't
risk.
have them, which is a bummer.
Yeah.
But the dive tank is separate from the lap pools that people are swimming in.
Yes. Yeah, we have 2 program pools. Activity pools is what we call them. They'll have lap swimming lanes in them, but that's where our swimming lessons and things will take place, as well as other activities. But we've got some small kids' water activities as well, as a lazy river that goes from inside to outside. We also have an outdoor aquatic center, so that part I didn't get to show you, but we have slides, and it's going to be cooler than our other pool. Did you guys know about our other pool? Yeah, it'll be bigger and nicer than our other pool, just the outdoor portion, so you can get out there and get sunburnt, if that's your thing, right? Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Dale. Great update for a great facility. Appreciate that. Mr. David G. Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. Dale, thank you. Mr. Urquhart, if you can pull up some things we can talk a little bit about. This might possibly be my favorite thing. So cities in Utah, they're required to plan for their future. And
Did you just make this up?
that's drop of a hat.
All right, just checking.
There's not a lot to it, as you'll see, but
One slide says general plan. Perfect.
That's all he could do.
Says
while
a
Dale,
lot,
while Dale was
right?
talking.
I didn't know how long Dale would talk.
Yeah, whatever.
115 right there.
You've heard it before, but really, particularly for a community like Spanish Fork, where things are changing every day. New rec centers, all the new residents living in new homes, which is part of the reason that we grow to the point of needing to have rec centers and grow to the point of being able to support businesses that, didn't feel like they could make money in Spanish Fork a decade ago, but now thrive and flourish, and having opportunities to work with people to bring companies to town that provide jobs and just everything that goes with being able to think about what Spanish Fork can be in the future and how to really put our best foot forward now to make sure that Spanish Fork is the best place that it can be. And I say this with genuine gratitude. I really, really think that all of us here today are the beneficiaries of people that in past decades have done a great job of thinking about that, of thinking about the future and looking well down the road. And I think that plays into, Jack, I'm trying to advance slides over here as if I can. Thanks. This is the project we've been working on for about 9 months now. This is the way we're working to brand it. Today's progress, tomorrow's pride. And it is, thank you. It's an update of what I'm talking about, that plan that the city has, which is intended to guide growth and change and different things like that. This is something that nobody's probably going to be able to really decipher it all from where we're at here, but an important part of a general plan is a map. And by way of a vision for the future, this map really is an important part. It's not the only part. There is a pretty significant document that, among other things, will kind of describe what this map means. This is what we've been working with essentially for the past 12 or 13 years. The different colors that we see there designate different land uses, whether they're different types of residential neighborhoods, different types of commercial developments, industry, agriculture, all different types of things like that. Not only for areas that are developed, but also for areas that are likely going to be developed in future decades. And in that way, it really is a plan for the city's future. So, as I mentioned, we're about 9 months into a project that really should be wrapped up by the end of the year. We should be close. We at least, by the end of the year, should have provided the city council with a draft that you guys can mull over and give feedback on, and we hope eventually get comfortable to adopt in order to replace this document. So we are certainly starting down the home stretch, to the extent that the consultants that we've been working with have put this next map together, and I'm going to have to explain a little bit about what it means. It is not this. It is not a proposed land use map, but rather it's a tool that they've put together to help us start to identify, based on feedback that we've collected, as literally thousands of people have provided input on a lot of questions that in one way or another really boil down to what should Spanish Fork look like in the future. Perhaps from afar, you can see some of the darkest colors there, the blues. Those are areas that are currently under development in some way or another. Some of those projects are just getting started. Some are almost done. You can also see a couple of different shades of orange. And in a nutshell, the areas that have that orange color are areas that, based on feedback that's been provided, we really expect to see change. We expect to see development to happen, and we expect to see, particularly in the areas that are along the Interstate 15 corridor. So, for example, up here, which is not far from where UDOT has recently started to construct a new interchange at I-15. We've heard residents of the community say they feel like that's an appropriate place for some new things to happen. In fact, some pretty intense land uses, maybe things that our residents aren't comfortable seeing elsewhere in the community. Apartments, maybe more shopping, different things like that. We heard similar things about this area that's identified as orange. It's hard to see it, but that's on the west side of Interstate 15, kind of right where Center Street hits I-15. If we followed the street that's just to the south of us here, west to I-15, the area on the other side is what we're talking about there, which that's a particularly important area for us because we expect UTA at some point, sooner than later, we hope, to construct a commuter rail stop there when the front runner service extends south from Provo down to Payson. And when you have a facility like that available, you do want to see land uses that help it be as fully utilized as it possibly can be. So kind of like I mentioned on the north end of the city, we would expect to see some pretty intense things there, both because of the presence of that kind of facility, again, commuter rail, but also because that's what we've heard from the community. Likewise, kind of down towards the Salem-Benjamin interchange, although kind of to a lesser degree by way of just maybe how dense or intense things would be. Those are really the three areas where, as we start to review different drafts of a general plan project, those really will be areas of focus. We did not hear people say that they want to see a lot of new and different land uses elsewhere in the community. That, frankly, is not a surprise. None at all. But the process that we went through to have that input provided and documented and considered, I think is critical by way of being able to really put this project on a path to where, hopefully, if it's adopted in 2025, it will be just as relevant in 2035 because the right kind of foundation was set with input that was received. The community has ownership of it. They buy in. They think it's the right thing. This council does, and future councils will as well, until at some point in the future somebody's having another conversation about updating it then. So really exciting project. Believe it or not, but this becomes a tool that gets used every day, really. And that's where it's exciting for us in our office. Councilman Marshall, that's kind of my state of where we're at. Any questions or anything to add, maybe?
As we start talking, you're going to be like, who's this guy talking? Because you and I have talked about station area growth on that side since I was on the Planning Commission, right? But as we sat down at the league for lunch and we're just talking about just big picture things, we started talking about where do we end as soon as we cross over I-15? Where does our city boundary end? You have, in the previous map, you have a pretty hard line that shows where we would potentially end. But you could imagine that just continue to creep and creep and creep and creep west. As in my profession, I just had a chance to work with 9 communities up and down the Wasatch Front on I-15 in Davis, Salt Lake County. Every single one of them, one of their top issues was access through I-15, east and west through I-15. Lehigh talks about it almost every time you talk to them, right? Some of Lehigh's problem is they planned that. They planned, yes, I-15 bifurcated their city, but then they planned growing on both sides. Time and time again, we get feedback from the community. We can't access our community on the west side because of the barrier of I-15. And as we were talking at the lunch, we're like, wait a second, are we doing the same thing in Spanish Fork? Are we planning for that same problem in Spanish Fork? So you end up with this barrier that doesn't connect our community, that's bifurcating our community. Salt Lake City is right now put out a proposal to look at connecting their community through I-15. So should we take a harder look about what we're doing on the west side? Should there be at some point a west side city that comes towards us and butts it? Not suggesting we take action by any means today at all. It was just a thing that as we started talking about it, we're like, I don't know that it's ever clicked in my head. I know it has not in mine. The thought of being, I mean, in my head, it's been Spanish Fork goes on the west side and we do exactly what the map shows and we continue to grow. But I think it's good for us to have to talk about that now. Because like you said, we are setting the foundation for 10, 15, 20 years from now. And I don't want to say today that we should or we shouldn't, but it's just something that I think Kevin was there and Jesse was there. Lennon, I think, came a little bit later. But as we talked about it, we're like, wait, we need to have this conversation here and let people know that we're thinking about it and trying to understand what do we want to do around I-15. As beneficial as it is to have I-15 near your community, it's also, not beneficial to bifurcate your community. And you look at what's out there today, it's tough to get through I-15 east-west, right? Center eventually comes, but there are very few places you can get on the west side today, and that just gets exacerbated by having a residential community on the west side. I think we're doing a great job putting the industrial side stuff on the west side. I think that's an appropriate use over there. But we should think a little bit harder about how many residents we want on the west side of R15. So that is the sort of the feedback that I wanted to give you today. I know Jesse wanted to talk about it. He's not here. But I just want to put that as a spot to be thinking about with the consultant and how that looks over there. It does sort of fly in the face of if we have a commuter rail stop there, what do we do around it? Because that happens to be on the west side.
Yeah.
And on the east side of I-15 there's not much in terms of density. It's pretty well single-family homes on that side. And so you have a hard time putting the right type of density around a commuter rail station if you don't go west. So it's a tough spot to be in. And just I put that out there today so that we can continue the conversation and know that we're interested in continuing that conversation. But it's again, 8 communities in Davis County. Every one of them are like, it's not good to have residents on both sides of I-15. It's really difficult to keep the community cohesion together, to keep the culture of the community. So I don't know, Kevin or Lennon, you want to add into that into that, but that I capture our overall general conversation.
I feel like you did. It's definitely something to consider and think about, especially glad you mentioned and brought up what Salt Lake's trying to figure out, right, with the trains and the freeway that splits them and divides them. And when Shane talked about this, is really something I'd never thought of. We've always had kind of the growth policy in place, and that's just what I always looked at as, okay, a Spanish Fork eventually will be out there. But I don't know that I'd ever been asked the question as to why. Why not just buffer it with I-15, which is a perfect buffer, right? And not to say that I'm leaning that way or not, but just the question of why. And looking down the road, years and years down the road, does it make more sense, like Shane said, to let a community out there grow and develop and come to us and use that as a buffer? Not to say one way is right, one way is wrong, but just a good thought, just something definitely, which is what we're supposed to do, is plan for the future, so something to think about.
Yeah, this is just a new idea. I like it. I think it's something to echo what Councilman Euler and Marshall have said. I think it's a great idea to consider as we move that direction and really take a good solid look at it, so we know if we want to go that way or not, or what works. I had never thought of it either, so it's good to entertain a new idea, and I like that.
See what happens when you send us to a conference?
Hey, exactly.
Put a wrench in it.
I think, maybe not the wrench, acronym or whatever for it. More of, I think the two sides of it is what you alluded to. If you were just to allow and say, okay, communities out there develop and come to I-15, Saratoga and Eagle Mountain, tell me what problem that solved.
Mm-hmm.
It just
Absolutely.
It made problems.
Absolutely. Yep.
And that doesn't mean everybody out there is part of a problem, but it sort of created problems for I-15 and congestion more than it solved. And so that's larger than just our city to start planning out there, but it sure is. We have a pretty good track record of trying to plan effectively and navigate those traffic issues rather than just let them happen to us. Now I know everybody's going to say, well, yeah, but 1,000 North, 1,000 North and Highway 6 is different. That's the intersection of Utah visiting all the rest of the state. So at certain times, it doesn't matter how many lanes you put there, it's going to be busy. It's going to be tough, and that's what it is. But I think whatever would happen out there, whether it's us planning or somebody else planning, the connection of there is that the wall, the walls can't be well figured out there, because I think that experiment was run with Saratoga and Eagle Mountain, and now us, the taxpayer, gets to figure out how to solve that mess for, I don't know how many years it's going to take, but they could have done that before ground was gobbled up with homes and businesses.
Yeah, and I think that's why we can talk about this now, is because
it's a pretty blank slate.
It is. We don't have any residential west of I-15 currently, so we're still ahead of it, and so we have the chance still to plan and still to talk about it. So
it's a little tough because the planning part of it has to be the aspect of chicken before the egg, because every email we get from residents asking about, well, why don't you figure out this traffic? Well, development does plan the roads and pay for the roads, and if they didn't, would be the majority of it, then would be increasing our taxes substantially to try to do it. And so it's a little bit of what comes first too there, but I think that's a smart discussion. I think it's smart to have as we finalize this plan here is and I know sometimes those lines are fuzzy for roads that do go east-west. So everybody's got to understand those are necessary. If you do anything over there, those are necessary. And they might not happen exactly where they're at, but boy, if you don't plan for them and start obtaining corridor, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I think my argument is not to push it onto somebody else, right? I think we should there needs to be planning work done, absolutely. And the overall big picture may look the same as if we planted into Spanish Fork, like residents for a while or whatever. The roads, the infrastructure will all be there in a very similar manner. It's just a matter of which community do those residents belong to, right? And is it more appropriate for them to belong to us or let someone else do that? And we're talking about something that literally is not going to happen for quite some time, right? In order for any of that development to happen, there needs to be an interchange. Before we get a commuter rail stop, there'll be an interchange there. That's still 10 to 15 years away. So there's a lot of things that can happen in between now and then, absolutely. And it could be one of these places where we draw this big fuzzy line around and say we need to do more work, extending into the future or whatever it might be. But it is just it's tricky to predict the future, right? And to put some really dark, heavy lines on it is tough right now. And I mean, the idea is not, again, like to Kevin's point, I don't know which is right or wrong, but it's a discussion that I think would be very good to have openly like this. And
Spanish Fork's in a unique spot because other communities, the decision's made for them. They've got either Utah Lake on one side and they've got the mountains on the other side, and communities already built out north and south, and so there's only so far they can grow. We don't have that in Spanish Fork, obviously. We've got between here and West Mountain, that's county. Not to say that we're going to West Mountain at all, and I hope we never do. It's a lot of land, but how do we, like Shane said, if we're already growth policy west of I-15, what's to keep that from staying where it's at now as property owners right on the boundary say, hey, you know what, 20, 30 years from now they approach a councilman and say, I'd really like to be in Spanish Fork. So.
A couple of thoughts. This is fascinating. I'm over here thinking, what? Right? Like, but now's a great time to have these conversations and certainly, certainly potentially set or reset expectations for some people. We're a couple of months away probably from having the draft given to us and then kind of put that in your hands, then where you go from there, and how long you take and different hearings that you may have. Right, that's on you guys, and you can set that table. I think it's a really good discussion to have and put out. If this is a serious time where you consider, do we want to, like, having that conversation and putting that out there would be now is the time, like you're saying. Keep in mind, obviously, we are on the other side of the freeway north, and so there is, at some point, you run into us on the other side of the freeway. But yeah, if you can't, we've got some connections, but if we can add a few more, it would be better. And so if we're going to grow over there, we've got to keep our eye on those connections and not lose any that we have, enhance the ones that we have, add additional if we can. So,
and you look at 6 and what's happening today. We're developing on both sides of US 6, and keeping those communities connected is, well, we're not.
It's tough. Yeah,
we're just not. There's not a grade separated pedestrian access across 6 anywhere along it.
Yeah. And when the school boundaries changed and made those kids go to Maple Mountain. Go to, is it Maple Grove Middle School and Mapleton Junior, right? Those families have less of a connection to this side of the highway, to your point. That's a difficult community
and 15 is
impediment.
Is twice that.
Yeah.
And to that point, that's the group that I brought down here last week and preached the gospel of Spanish Fork for about an hour and a half till they were completely full of it. So that's going to take, step it up, Landon. It's your turn next. That's your neighborhood that was down here.
It was a strange conversation. It did blow my mind as I walked.
I'll recover.
Table. Honestly, it was like, what did we just have that conversation?
Yeah, I'll recover, but it'll take me a day.
Sure will.
Yeah, that's a good point. I appreciate Seth saying that because we've been in meetings with the northwest quadrant, I guess, that you'd talk of Spanish Fork west of I-15 already. Substantial. We're talking millions and millions of taxpayer funds already put into the road improvements, the infrastructure improvements.
And that's a completely different use, right? Up in the Northwest. It's a completely different. You don't have people living out there. You have a few, You have a few people. But what we're talking about directly west of I-15 will be thousands of people, or with serious density over there.
Yeah, and,
So it's
and
just-
your line's probably what, 10th south-ish, right? From roughly 10th south to the south is probably where you're looking, where you'd have some more dense populations. Yeah.
The little orange piece out on the north side, absolutely. Let's go crazy. There's no better place to put a different land use residentially than there. Access to I-15 directly without having to drive through anybody's neighborhood to get to it. Access to shopping, access to jobs, all the jobs you could ever want just west of there. Like, this is the time and place to put in some good quality density. Anyway, there you go, Dave. I'm sure you're like, who is that Marshall guy up there? Because that's not a conversation I thought I would ever have.
15 years ago, we had those conversations, Shane. It's just been a while. Have you forgotten?
Oh, yeah.
Ex-planning commissioner Marshall. I remember that.
And with that, Mayor, we don't have any other staff reports.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay.
Seth, if I can maybe one quick
Yeah,
one.
you have one more.
Sorry.
He does have one. I'm glad the room's different.
Yeah, thank you. October 8th, we have a joint Planning Commission City Council meeting. One of the two that we'll have in 2024. This is the main event for the night. I have a couple of other kind of housekeeping things maybe we want to touch on as well, but this exact kind of conversation, I think, makes a ton of sense to continue. Our consultant will be in town for that discussion, and I really appreciate the time on that. Switching gears, we mentioned a couple of weeks ago that as a result of some complaints that staff had received about some of the merchants in Spanish Fork and where they display certain things, for tonight, we'll just call them intimate products. We had formulated some way maybe to try to work with those retailers to display them in a more discreet way. And in short, we're at a point tonight where we think it's most appropriate just to put that whole conversation on hold and to encourage our residents maybe to work directly with those retailers and to, frankly, leave the city out of the discussion as best as we can. We can certainly revisit that, speaking from staff's perspective, if or when the council ever wants to, again, but just because we had the conversation once before and suggested we were going to move forward, now that we've changed directions, just wanted to mention that. So,
Thank you, David. Appreciate that. We've discussed that, and we'll duly note
Maybe
it
you've
tonight.
reached out to those businesses that we had talked to originally, or will, maybe after today, and tell
I
them.
want to see if there's any objection right now, but
Nope, I think that's the appropriate way to go.
I agree, 100%.
So we'll reach back out to them and let them know that what drafts they had seen and conversations we'd had are indefinitely shelved, pun intended.
I appreciate that. Appreciate the business community. It's already been stated through the Chamber of Commerce and stuff, but the relationship we have with businesses in Spanish Fork is pretty unique in that we talk to each other regularly and see things a lot on the same basis. So that's a good starting point there. Appreciate you bringing that up, Dave. Okay, any other questions for staff reports there? If not, it takes us to 7 on our agenda, the consent items A and B, the minutes of Spanish Fork Council Meeting 9-3, and the minutes of Spanish Fork Work Session at the Rec Center.
I move to approve the consent items.
Motion made by Councilman Euler.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Took. All in favor say yes.
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 The consent items are approved. It takes us to item 8, new business. We have A and B. First, the appointment of Youth City Council Advisor. Not sure who's taking this one. Tyler.
Mayor, so that would be, since you're the one that appoints that,
Yes.
there should be some
Information for me.
Yeah.
Let me bring that up. Okay. Is there any details, any write-up on Jacoy Baird?
Yeah, it should be.
Oh,
You
I've
see
got
it
it right
there?
here. Thank you. Okay, Jacoy's been a resident of Spanish Fork for over 20 years. She's the mother of 5, 4 of whom have been or are currently members of the Youth City Council. She's a former junior high English teacher. Jacoi is one who enjoys being involved. This includes involvement with PTA, elections, church, neighborhood, and family. She enjoys reading, gardening, spending time with family, and visiting with friends. She's one who loves to serve and is always on the lookout for ways she can help. Is Jacoi here? Okay. In this role, Jacoi would be responsible for mentoring and guiding the members of the Youth City Council, helping to develop their leadership skills and fostering civic engagement among the youth in the community. As an advisor, Jacoi would assist in organizing events, facilitating discussions, and ensuring that the Youth City Council's initiatives align with the goals and values of the city. This appointment aims to provide strong support for the YCC, encouraging greater involvement of young people in local government and community activities. I request the council's consent to approve the appointment of Jacoi. I know, is it Councilman Cardin that's currently serving on the YCC, so I'm sure he would know more about this appointment than all of us up here. But any questions about that appointment? No. Okay. I would entertain a motion to approve my appointment as Jacoi Baird as Youth City Council Advisor.
I move to approve Jacoi Baird as new Youth City Council Advisor.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Took, seconded by Councilman Marshall. Roll call vote. Councilman Euler?
Yes.
Councilman Took?
Yes.
And Councilman Marshall?
Yes.
Thank you, Jacoi. We appreciate you coming on board for the Youth City Council. Item B is a proposed change to the city's requirements for home occupations. This sounds like David or Vaughn. Is it David?
I'll take it.
Okay.
And I really think it's easiest to just tell the story the way it happened. We were approached a few weeks ago by a resident whose adult daughter lives in Spanish Fork but doesn't live with him. And he wants her and she wants to be able to get a business license to operate a dog grooming business from her parents' home. And we're very particular, I think, about requirements for home occupations in Spanish Fork. There is a relatively narrow sort of window that a particular business type has to fit into to be allowed in our residential neighborhoods as a home occupation. Some of the criteria that go along with that include that if you have, for example, let's say a hair salon, and you want to have people come to your home to do something to their hair, you can only have one patron in your home at a time, which is intended to limit the impact, limit maybe a car that's parked around in a residential neighborhood, different things like that. You can't have outside employees involved with a home occupation business. In fact, the majority of the home occupation businesses that we have, it's simply a license that we've issued so somebody can have a home office where maybe there are never customers that come, where simply they have their business mail delivered. It's that address for tax purposes and different things like that, and they perhaps develop websites or different things like that and have no need for anything but some kind of virtual communication with the rest of the world. By way of all aspects of the city's home occupation program, it's really intended to allow for things that maybe neighbors wouldn't necessarily even know are happening there. Nothing that's completely unaccustomed to having happen in a residential neighborhood. We allow dog grooming businesses, just like people grooming businesses, as home occupations, provided that certain criteria are met. So the proposal that this particular resident had for his daughter to be able to have a business in his home, it wasn't alien in that regard. And we have prepared the language that we have here in an effort to potentially open up the opportunity for this family to be able to accommodate a child to have a business license in their home but not do anything more than that. So just to open up the prospect as narrowly as we possibly can to allow for this to occur, not to allow for any additional employees or different things of that nature. I will say that I'm comfortable with this proposal. By way of the family connection, I think there inherently is some self-policing that occurs. Other things that we talked about with the gentleman that's made this proposal, his daughter's already there, X number of hours a week. Potentially they could, play some kind of a game with us even saying, well, she sleeps there 2 nights a week or something like that. So I think it's best if the council's inclined to make this change, to do so, to just keep everything as clear and above board as possible. I don't believe that this would lead to any impacts that already would be avoided with the current regulations that we have, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
that's the long and short of it.
Thank you, Dave. Any questions for Dave on those details?
I could also see, Mayor, circumstances where, let's say, this daughter started the dog grooming business when she was a junior in high school, and then now she's at college and moves away, but continues to keep going here. In theory, she'd be outside of the boundaries of our law because now she resides, say, in Provo as a student at UVU or at BYU or something like that, but comes here during the week or on weekends to do that. And so as we considered it, we felt, as staff at least, that this opening was really narrow, as Dave said, and something that felt the majority of the residents would say, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Or maybe even, I think I would want that, without it growing exponentially and potentially affecting or impacting negatively the nature of neighborhoods being overrun by businesses.
Like in that application process, pretty easy to ask. You remember the family, do you, and get that correspondence and make sure it's right.
It seems like the applicant could have played a number of games and gotten by probably just fine. But I think this sort of levels up a little bit, make sure that we're all legal and comfortable and does it the right way. And I'm with you, Dave. I don't see an additional impact to the city, the residents, because of this. It's very, very narrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't see any issues with it.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion for item B as described.
I move to approve the change to the city's requirement for home occupations to allow non-resident children to operate home occupations from their parents' homes.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Marshall, seconded by Councilman Euler. Roll call vote here. Councilman Took.
Yes.
Councilman Euler.
Yes.
Councilman Marshall.
Yes.
Item B is approved. Takes us to 9 of our agenda discussion items. There's 2 of them, A and B tonight. First is artificial turf amendment.
Again, Mr. Mayor, thank you. We had a brief conversation I think it was a couple of months ago, about the concept of amending our landscape regulations to allow artificial turf, and appreciate Mr. Pierce passing out hard copy. It's going to be a little bit easier maybe to read than what we'll have on the screen.
Thank you, sir.
So we've taken a stab at a draft, and I really want to emphasize that, in my perspective, this is a work in progress. So we certainly tonight are hoping to get your input, hoping really to get direction from you about any changes that you'd like us to see, any changes that you'd like us to make to this, or for that matter, if you want us to go a completely different direction. We've been kicking this around long enough that I really think we need to bring it to a conclusion in a matter of maybe weeks and not months. In fact, we have some residents in the community that are interested in, I think, getting some answers sooner than later. So, Jack, I appreciate that. There are 4 things in particular that I hope we can touch on tonight. There's one that's particularly important for me. But to start with, as we've talked about artificial turf and what makes sense, in short, we don't necessarily feel like what different people would be comfortable calling artificial turf would be uniform. There are lots of different products out there, lots of different ways to install it. There is material that you can go and buy by the square yard at Lowe's or Home Depot, which effectively is just carpet that I think some people would consider to be suitable. One of the things that I understand that we heard before was that the level of quality by way of the product that would be used as artificial turf matters. The definition that we've included with what Corey just passed out it's pretty verbose. And you can see with the strikeout language there. Yeah, and in fact, Jack, I think it might be easier to go back to the presentation. Maybe anybody's watching on television or something. The text is a little bit easier to read. I think we start like on slide 5. Thanks. There's something of a definition in the code now. I suggest that be replaced. I don't know that this is perfect, but thank you. What we have here, if somebody in your office that did some great research, it's attached to this. The text becomes kind of small. I apologize for that, but you have a digital copy as well. Something like 25 cities, a number of Utah cities, a number of Arizona, California, Nevada cities as well, by way of how they regulate artificial turf, how they define it, different things like that. And this definition is kind of a compilation of the best definitions that they use. So I think that is something that probably can use some work. But in short, the concept is to allow it, we want it to meet a certain level of quality. I am not an expert. We're trying, so this would be the last bit of research that we're working on to really understand what's available in the market, what that looks like, to see if that can maybe help us further define what we're talking about here. Again, back to what we heard the last time we talked, and this would be the second thing in addition to the definition that we want to make sure we're in line with the council on. There was a conversation about the need to have something other than just artificial turf. Maybe some live plantings, something to that effect. And as we read through the current regulations and thought about that concept, we came up with the idea of simply allowing artificial turf the same way we allow live turf grass today. So let's call that like the starting point, maybe, for the discussion. The use of live grass is limited in an effort to conserve water use. Obviously, with artificial turf, there's not that concern, but with the limit on the amount of grass somebody can plant, there also is a requirement for a certain number of other types of plantings to be used in a yard, maybe in other parts of the yard that are bark mulch or rock or different things like that. So again, just as a starting point, there's that conversation. We had a good conversation in the DRC meeting as well about other features like putting greens and how do those maybe fit in relative to, for example, like most of the definitions that we've seen of turf grass require a certain length of, I'm going to call it a blade, 1.5 2 inches, something like that. Well, that's a long putting green, right? So I think that's something we can fit in relatively easy. And the fourth thing that I want to bring up, I'm not saying at all this is the exhaustive list. I expect that you probably will have other things as well, but enforcing any of the regulations that we have on landscaping is extremely difficult. And I'm just going to throw out, like, these for us in our office are real examples. So today we don't, like, by the book, allow somebody to plant artificial turf. Well, there's one particular neighborhood in town where homes have been built over the course of the last couple of years where 5, 6, 7 homeowners have used artificial turf, almost throughout their entire yards. I know that's a significant investment in their homes. Over the years, with the different councils that we've worked with, certainly not speaking for any of you, but there's been a genuine reluctance to go to homeowners and to do what we would have to do in the case of saying, hey, yes, you may have spent $5,000 on that yard 6 months ago, but you need to
rip it out.
Replace it. And that is not limited to conversations about artificial turf. And in fact, the legislature 18 months ago stripped cities throughout the state from probably the best tool, or from being able to use probably the best tool that we had to get, at least with new construction landscaping installed in accordance with regulations. So our hands are tied. And I really honestly think we would have to be given some direction from this council that would be very different from what we've been given in the past, to have the moxie to go to somebody and say, can I just leave it at that? I mean, that for me is a real challenge. So I'll also mention that there are a couple of trains of thought along those lines. Some people would say that having rules on the that make sense is a good idea, whether you plan to enforce them or not. That almost like there's some aspirational aspect to that you're trying to encourage people to follow rules. And there's another train of thought, which is simply, if you don't plan on enforcing it, then don't have a rule for it. So I don't want to, completely take the conversation off the rails with that, but that really is a significant issue. It impacts our office, Chief Johnson's folks, Vaughn's people by way of his involvement, the legal side on enforcing things. And at the same time, I think there is a need for a standard. So be clear.
I think that's what this does, is set a standard more than it does enforce a penalty. Right? This is, in general, we would rather it look like this. We may not have you rip out everything installed, but by putting it down, more than likely it'll be followed more often. But without it, then it's a free-for-all. Right.
How does it, so I'm not familiar with turf. Grass obviously has roots that go down and it keeps the grass where it is. How does turf work where it keeps, over years, it doesn't fold like a carpet in your home does, and just the appearance of it that way starts to show wear and tear? How does it stay level to the ground?
Stapled.
It's stapled into the ground.
Mm-hmm. I like the idea of replacing or adding artificial turf where it said lawn, to keep the percentages, to keep the look and feel, not just from a water-wise, but from an overall aesthetic appearance. So I like that. I think the definition is pretty darn close, honestly. I think it's the 1.5 inches is a big deal. Right? You get that thick, and it's a different quality of product. You can't necessarily buy that at Home Depot and slap it down. So I like that as well. The one comment I had, understand completely why lawn is not allowed in park strips, but it would seem that artificial turf could be a decent place. Park strips would be okay for artificial turf. Very low maintenance. You don't have the problems with growth. So other than that, though, I like how it's written.
The one thought we had about park strips, and this is not universal, occasionally there are utilities in the park strip. So what if,
where
we
sod or grass, you can cut it out, fill the hole, it grows back in.
Tree, obviously, you could have turf replaced to probably repaired even somehow, I would guess. But that was the
yeah,
thought.
I mean,
See the lines.
you put some concrete or stamp something in there or pavers. I mean, you're going to.
There's a reason city holds the easement on park strips, right?
Yep.
For that very purpose.
That's the biggest reason, yeah.
It's going to happen for sure, but in the 25 years that you live in that home, it's a pretty good place to put artificial turf for that one occasion that it would happen. That it would get tore up.
What was the DRC discussion about putting greens, not counting or not counting?
Do you want to help? I think I
putting
can.
greens. I mean, it wouldn't help Shane.
it.
He could do the whole lawn, his whole thing in putting greens. It wouldn't help that he can't putt still.
Very true.
But
Very accurate.
We discussed that treating putting greens not as artificial turf, more like an activity zone, as if it were like a pickleball court or a barbecue patio or something like that. It's more similar to that than I think it is a replacement for lawn.
yeah,
And so I think that's where we kind of left it.
I would agree.
So you get an exception to like the pile height, that inch and a half for something like that. Easy to work into the concept, I think. If you think we're on the right track here, then we'll go ahead and notice. And we'll have a conversation with the Planning Commission in a couple of weeks and bring it back in a more formal setting. Like I mentioned, there are a couple of other things that we're looking into from the research side. If you have any other thoughts, in the meantime, feel free to reach out. Nobody in our office, I don't know that we have a city employee that's an expert in this, which I think is probably a little bit of the reason that initially we had kind of an adverse reaction to the concept, which it's unknown to us, but that's where we're at.
but while we're discussing it, I guess that's the. Has there been the contractors that do deal in this space corresponding with us, or is now the time to engage them? Them engage us.
We're reaching out now,
Okay.
so that's kind of our last step. We've had residents that have reached out. So, for example, in one neighborhood, we haven't released deposits. The last round of deposits that we were legally allowed to keep as an incentive for somebody to get landscaping in, and I think they're anxious for us to be in a position where we could release those. So,
Got it.
Just know we're putting a lot of neighborhood kids out of business. The more turf we put in.
One more mowing.
One more. They can come pick up poop.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate that. Good discussion, and we'll see it coming back up before this body. Item B is property tax receipt calculator.
Yeah, I've been sitting all day, so I thought I'd get up here and stretch the legs.
Appreciate that.
I came across a city in Minnesota that had what they called a property tax receipt, and I thought that was kind of an interesting idea. The idea was to kind of show their residents, hey, this is the amount you're paying, and this is where your tax dollars are going. So I thought, I wonder if I could calculate that for us and see what that would look like. Jack, if you want to pull that up. So our property tax dollars go into the general fund. It's not the only tax dollars that go into the general fund. We budgeted about $6 million, and we get, in property tax, total taxes in the general fund budget to be about $24 million, just shy of there. But then what I went and did is said, okay, of our property tax dollars, where is that going? So this spreadsheet is dynamic. You can change a couple of the fields. So you can come in here and enter in your county assessed property value there in that cell. And $461,262 is actually the average residential property value. We got that number from Utah County. So I've got that number in there right now. You can change that, but we'll leave it there for now. You can answer the question that says, is this a primary residential property? Some people may not know that primary residential properties get a 45% discount. They pay taxes on 55% of the value of their property. So 55% of the $461,000 is $253,000. You take that amount, and then you times it by the tax rate for each of the taxing entities. And the chart to the right there shows where your property tax dollars go by each of these taxing entities. So 76% goes to Nebo School District, about 11% comes to Spanish Fork City, about 7% to the county, 4% to Central Utah Water, and then there's a couple other tinier organizations. So for the average home, about their property tax bill will be about $2,400, and you can see where that's going. Now, what I wanted to figure out was, okay, for the Spanish Fork City portion of your bill, where's that going? So for the 11% red section of the bigger pie, where does that go? The biggest one is public safety, so police being the biggest, and then the fourth one, fire and EMS, both public safety there. Parks and Rec, different divisions of Parks and Rec, and then rec center debt. For the average property, about $60 annually goes towards rec center debt from property tax. And then admin, legal, IT, finance, those type of administrative functions, those accounted for less than 1% of your total property tax bill. So if you look at cell F19 there, that's based off of your total property tax bill. And then library, less than 1% of your total property tax bill is coming to this library here. So I just wanted to share this with you, see if this is something that you feel like is good data to share with residents, and what form or fashion that might take place.
So 2 questions that you asked. Yeah, absolutely. I think this is good information for our residents. Any opportunity we have to be transparent,
right. That's the word, right?
Is a good thing. It's a win. Your second question, I don't know. I don't know how we share it.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, this is awesome. This is great, Jordan. Thank you for putting this together. This is fun.
Is there anything surprising to you from this? Or is it kind of what you expected?
Every time I look at this on my own bill, and I look at the $2,500 tax bill, and then I realize that only $300 of it is the city's portion. It's shocking. Every time, and this breakdown, that is pretty impressive. It's good to know where it goes.
Yeah.
So let's tinker just for a moment and see how it changes, because I mean you're exactly right. You've got the total bill and the city's portion. So let's say my assessed value, which is not my appraised value. I think that's a critical thing, and you can get your assessed value on maybe from the document that you get from the county with your taxes. But let's say the assessed value on my home is $675,000. So then all of those numbers change, and of course there's some proportionality to it. But yeah, still the city portion of that bill is right there, that $396.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Shane.
When we do this, when we talk like this, I think there are those folks out there that interpret this conversation as us collectively trying to say, "See, it's not that bad."
Right.
That's not the point. Right. Yeah. That's not the point. We're not trying to justify in any way the city's portion of this bill. This is simply to say, here's a tool you can use to see where your money's going and how it's being spent.
Mm-hmm.
We can agree or disagree on where it's been spent. That's completely fine. And we're not saying use this because you're not smart enough to figure this out. That's not it at all, right? And I think I want to make sure we're very clear. That's not the intent. The intent is to just break down the number and give you a better
it's another level of transparency.
What I would love is for you to propose this to the federal government and see if they can do something similar.
Yeah.
So one thing that this does, maybe to your point, Shane, that I think is not easy for somebody to do, is this takes into consideration all of the revenues that specific grouping may bring in. So if there are any police revenues, maybe through the citations that they write or through the classes that they give, or if there are ambulance billings that the fire and EMS may bring in, or accident revenues that they get from the insurance companies when they go and clean up after an accident. Those are factored into the bottom line here, and so they're deducted from the expense, and then this is not perfect science, so this it's not always this way, but then it's proportionally shared across all of these functions. But it gives you a pretty good picture of, all right, so in this hypothetical, the $400 that somebody may pay if their assessed value is $675, about $100 of that 400, so about a fourth, goes towards police, and so on, and that provides some clarity.
The only question, Jordan, I guess I would have is of the 11% that comes to Spanish Fork City. Currently, we've got 6 line items there.
Right.
One of those, the rec center debt, a few years ago would not have been there, right?
Right.
So as things are added or adjusted, how does that proportion to each of those items change? How is that determined?
Yeah, these numbers are based off of the budget that we're operating off of right now. And like Seth said, we took revenue and expenses, so next year it'll be slightly different. Rec center debt will still be a big player in that until it's paid off, right? Yeah. Does that kind of, I mean, it will fluctuate depending on fire and EMS. They have ambulance billing revenue that comes in, so how much that comes in. And what's interesting is what we've budgeted will be different than what's actual. So there's some fuzzy math here.
Yeah.
But it is based off of what's budgeted.
Jordan, we've spent some time working on this, and I think Jordan's gotten this to an excellent place. Jordan, I'm not sure, based on what I'm looking at here and thinking about it, I'm not sure that we calculated the library lease payment increases.
I believe it is calculated because the library lease payment for this building is part of their budget.
You're right. It is in their budget.
I'm pretty sure I double-checked that one.
My favorite days are when you two disagree on that.
You're right. Because it is inside of that budget,
It is
isn't it?
part of that budget.
Yeah. And the revenues are offsetting, right? I mean, we've got, I think there's like $8 in
There's a little bit of late fee revenue.
in late fees that offset, so I think we're okay. But okay, yeah, never mind.
I mean, you don't see golf on there because golf revenue is it's covering its expenses, right? So there's building inspections isn't on there because building permits pay for building inspections. Then you have utilities that aren't even part of the general fund. You don't see those there because your utility bill pays for those utilities.
So our intention is to work on something like this and put it on the internet, put it on our website, see if we can get this calculator to be dynamic and function there, that somebody can key it in on a website, and if they're interested in seeing how their bill plays into our current budget. At this point, I don't know that we see any pitfalls in doing that or anything that to change or adjust about how we've done that. Certainly welcome feedback if you see otherwise.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Cool. It's a fun tool.
When you get your property tax notices?
Those notices, I think, go out around November 1st. I believe they're due at the end of November. So
Having this where we get that in the mail, because that's when it's in front of our faces as residents. It's when you get it and you're like, oh my gosh, now what am I paying for?
Yeah.
You can plug that figure in Spanish Fork's website, and we can get you some clarity.
Yeah, most residents got a pre-bill version in July, right around the 24th, I think it was. And here in the next month or so, you'll get the actual bill.
Good place to remind, too, that I think you touched on it well, Jordan, but this is the general fund. This is the general fund that communities come together and assess tax and bring in tax revenue to fund things that would never make money. You can't write enough tickets to fund the police, and you can't collect, even though he's trying. I know Chief's out there trying. But how far would, $87, how long would that turn on the lights down at the ballparks, right?
And Mayor, to that point, $87 includes the cemetery, every park that we have. So the sports park, the All Abilities Park, the recreation programs. That's all of that $87, and this is
Fiesta
all
Days,
Fiesta
Arts
Day,
Council events.
all of that stuff is inside of Parks and Rec there, which is
huge.
Huge.
Senior Center is part of that number.
Yeah.
These are things that make up your community, that you prioritize, and like you mentioned, can be fluid and can change year to year, can change decade to decade as communities' needs change. But these are things that is our job as the elected officials that are designed to go over this stuff and vote on it. That's the stuff that's never going to return the profit like the private sector is designed to do. It's the profit is your quality of life as the community.
Yeah, I'm looking at the very top line, Nebo School District, right? I haven't had a child in the Nebo School District in a very long time. And I'm looking at it like, man, that's a chunk of change. But that is a community investment that we all that we all are making to make our community better. And it just keeps going down that list, right? Those are things, like you said, Mayor, that we just couldn't do as a society without something like this. And that makes our society better because of this, because we have come together, pooled our money, and provided quality education or rec centers or parks and recs or police or whatever it might be, because we've collectively pooled our money together in order to do so.
Yeah, imagine the alternative.
Yeah.
Well, the alternative is the breakdown of the social contract.
Correct.
You're going to be 65 before you know it. You're closer there than a lot of us here. and so if you don't spend that money to get that child that's still in high school educated to become your orthopedic surgeon by the time you need it,
we're in trouble.
You're going to be in trouble. You're going to be in trouble. Yep. So it's your time to pay. It's not your time to skimp. You probably ought to add more onto your bill, frankly.
Imagine Dale without that, right? I mean, he's in trouble.
At $100 a year for the entire police force, that's an incredible thing. I appreciate you doing this, Jordan. This is really good. I think it is. You know, there's a bunch of caveats you put behind all this. There's some what did you say the math was? Fuzzy math in there for sure. Like, you can't get to the nearest decimal point on any of this stuff, but it gives a very good indication of where your money's going in a very transparent way. So congratulations. I hope we find a way to put this on the website, because it is very, very good. I definitely do have access to this, because I want to show this to my father, because he does not believe any of that. He does not know. He doesn't know where it goes. And how would you? Yeah. How would you know where your $300 in your Spanish Fork City property tax goes?
You just know you pay it, and that's all you know.
You're pissed.
Yeah.
Well, he is.
He's watching this meeting. He's going to be mad at you.
He can't figure out how to make it work on his remote.
That's another part.
Amazon Fire Stick.
Travis will be over. Okay, Brian will be over.
Brian, could you go up to? Yeah.
Thank you, Jordan. It's a great idea. Great thing to further, and we'll let you know, everybody, when it's available and up and ready.
We'll do a screenshot.
Reminds me of what's on the wall. We strive to build and maintain a vibrant city through personal community interactions and innovative local government services.
There you go.
So well done.
You got it.
Well done, Jordan.
Yep. Okay, it looks like we do have a closed session on the agenda tonight.
Yeah, Mayor, I think if this is your call, we had that one item in the work session that we weren't able to get to as well. If you guys have...
Bring it up here?
Well, we don't need to bring it up here, but we need to adjourn to closed session. We've got a couple of items to deal with to talk about there, but if you have the time as well, if we could adjourn to that work session as well. Back to work session,
and then
to cover that.
Then go to closed session.
Yeah,
we adjourn to work session to discuss proportionate business license fee, and then from the work session, could entertain a motion to adjourn to closed session. I would entertain a motion.
So I'm sorry, I missed the public comment by like a minute or something. I was driving home from Orem from a music lesson for my daughter. I'm so sorry.
Tell us your name. Sorry.
My name is Elizabeth Jukes. I sent an email to Miss Silver, and I've been trying to contact, and I'm an advisor for a club. It's Constitution Live Youth Council, and I've had council members and myself trying to contact the City Council to try to invite you to an event we're having tomorrow. And I wanted to thank you, Mayor, for highlighting our Constitution Day, which is today. It's been 237 years since the signing of the Constitution. So that's quite an anniversary. I love it, and I just wanted to pass these out. And if you could get the word out to our city, that would be awesome. Put it on Facebook or on your website. I know it's tomorrow. It's short notice. We're meeting with the Kiwanis Club to read the Constitution. So if you could come, that would be so awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time. Sorry I missed you.
No,
It's all good.
thanks for hanging out. We appreciate it.
So do you want me to read it real quick, Mayor?
Yeah, you can read this, but Tara, this is you did communicate this to us earlier today, right?
Yep.
So yes, hold on one second, Kevin. We'll read this. We'll read this.
So
for the,
read the Constitution with the Kiwanis Club. Date September 18th, which is tomorrow, 7 p.m. Location 380 North Main Street, which is the Veteran Memorial Building. I think most people in town know where that is. So see you there.
Thank you
And
so much for this.
Mayor, Travis just sent me a note that said they plan to be there and record it, and so it'll be not only will it
SSCN
happen.
will be there. They're going to record it. They said they're going to broadcast it,
Yep.
and they're going to rebroadcast it. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Perfect.
pump it out. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Important
you.
day. Thank you. Okay, I would entertain a motion to go into back into work session.
So we can make the motion to go to closed session in work session?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, I move that we go back to work session.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Euler, seconded by Councilman Marshall to go back into work session. Roll call vote. Councilman Euler.
Yes.
Councilman Took.
Yes.
Councilman Marshall.
Yes.
We're going into work session. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Youth City Council reps, for being with us tonight.
The Lewises. Thank you.